Good morning. Welcome back to CDX. Okay, should have probably found where I was in my script before I started, shouldn't I? Yeah.
Hello? Hello?
Oh, you're working now. Super.
We're good.
Okay, with me we have Max from Google, who is going to be talking about digital assistants. This is something I wrote my column about in the last issue, Max. Don't know if you saw it, but we were talking about duplex. For those in the audience who haven't seen Google Duplex, it's pretty scary stuff. It's people asking their Google Assistant to make appointments for them, and then a computer calling a human and interacting with them, and the human didn't even know. I mean, perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about what you know about Google Duplex and how it might affect dealers.
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you very much for having me this morning. I'm conscious it's quite early and there were a lot of after parties last night, so thank you very much for attending. Bit of background to myself, so I work within the ads team, so I partner with the automotive sector, with the exception of the OEMs, to help bring the best of Google to their businesses. So my knowledge of Duplex as a product is fairly limited. I don't know too much more than was shown at the developer conference, but as James just alluded to, it was an experiment using the Google Assistant to book an appointment through a hair salon for a particular client. And I think really it's worth kind of bringing this back to the assistant itself and what it means to provide assistive experiences, and I think that's where the most value for dealerships will come. So the Google Assistant itself is there to help users get things done. So whether you're at home, whether you're on the move, whether you're on your car, it exists to assist you. And what the team are obviously developing are new ways that it can do that. And the experiment and the demo which you saw was just an evolution of that. So, and it was a great example of how far machine learning has come in such a short amount of time and where that kind of new frontier of digital marketing is going to go. So hopefully as we go through this talk, I can give you a good idea of what that means for dealers. So not too much on that, unfortunately. I wish I had that privilege, but I do not.
I mean, from what I saw, it was pretty scary stuff and so advanced it was working perfectly. I mean, the person at the other end of this phone line didn't even know that they were talking to a Google robot. I mean, surely it's only a matter of time before people start calling up dealerships via Google Assistant saying, can you book me a test drive? I mean, how are dealers going to manage to cope with that? And are they going to have to treat a Google robot any different to a consumer?
I think that's a good question. I wish I had the answer to that. Unfortunately, I do not. I think, you know, if customers want to contact you, they're going to want to contact you. They're going to do that via phone calls themselves or via some sort of assistive experience. How that works and plays, you know, obviously, I don't know. I think with all kind of technology and how you're able to kind of communicate with your clients, you want to adapt. You want to provide the best experience for them possible. So be that dealing with inbound calls, which you're already doing. You're already dealing with that kind of infrastructure where you are getting inbound calls, you're booking appointments, you're booking test drives. That won't continue to change too much. I think it's really, you know, positioning yourself in the best possible way in the digital environment and making sure that you are assistive to your customers. And I think that's where it will be an evolution of that.
Are car buyers using things like Google Home and Voice to search for cars? And is there anything that dealers need to do to prepare for that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because our research shows that when users are looking to purchase a new car, they typically will engage with 4.5 different devices. And that during that process of purchasing a car, that could be 2 to 3 months, they will be accessing over 900 different digital touchpoints along the way. That could be our search platforms, for example, YouTube, it could be publisher websites, content reviews. And of those 4.5 devices, you would assume that some of those will be voice enabled. So yes, there's a strong likelihood that that voice search and voice assistance may be used during that process. I guess a good example of that, I could literally do an on-stage example right now of how the assistant could be used within the dealership scope and what it means for you guys. So on-stage, live demos is always a thing you should probably avoid, but I'm going to give it a go. But let me give this a try. Where is the nearest Renault dealer?
The address for Renault is Trinity Way, Manchester M37FT.
What time is it open?
Renault is open today from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Here are the hours for the...
How do I get there?
The best way to get to Renault by public transport is to catch 5 departing at 9:41 a.m. from Deansgate, Castleford.
I'll stop that there. But as you can see, even in today's world, there I found the information I needed within a matter of minutes, so I knew where the dealer was, I knew its opening hours, I knew how to get there. So I was assisted through that experience, through a very kind of frictionless experience. And that's really what these, the kind of technological change and voice assistant and the digital experiences are really trying to move towards, is that assistive experience. And that's really where dealers are going to be able to grow. And there's things you can do today to make sure that you have, you're set up for this world. So that example that I just showed relied on your Google business listing. So making sure that the information and the signals that you're pointing to Google are accurate and correct. So based off the best practice that you're doing today, you're already enabling yourself with this kind of new experiences. There's not a playbook to be able to say, do this, do this, do this in order to be more visible. But obviously just make sure that you're following online best practice. That's really where you're going to have the most kind of traction when it comes to these types of interfaces.
That's a really clever example of how voice can be used. Is there anything that dealers need to take home today to implement on their sites to make sure they're ready for them to do that? I mean, would that work if someone said, where's my nearest used car dealer?
Yeah, so I mean, it's using the same kind of search algorithms and the technology that powers all of our kind of Google products and services. So like I said, best practice is still really important. There's things you can do today around kind of markup on your sites and making sure that you're pointing the right signals. And as I said, just engaging with the ecosystem and everything that you have available to you today will make that more prevalent. If you are more technically kind of confident, there is Actions on Google, which is a developer tool which allows you to build actions for specific queries across Google Assistant, and you can find that just by doing a quick Google on Actions on Google, and there's kind of templated examples of how that could look and feel. So if you're curious, that's where I would recommend you go to have a little bit more of a dive, but I wouldn't say that there's one particular thing dealers should be doing today which is going to suddenly change that experience. But it's really follow the best practice, make sure you are providing the best experience possible, the most assistive experience possible, and it will naturally come.
What about search terms when it comes to voice? Do consumers use different search terms, and do you have to prepare your websites differently for voice queries?
That's a good question. I don't have particular data around the difference between voice and kind of keyword based, but we find that when users are interacting with the assistant, 70% of the time they're using natural language. So they're talking to it in a more conversational way, and I think that's very important to understand how users are interacting with that. And I guess from a kind of consumer trend point of view, we're seeing changes based off that kind of connectivity that we're seeing. So users are more and more curious these days. I kind of alluded to it yesterday when I was on stage during one of our panels, but people are empowered to find the information that they need. They are used to kind of accessing that information, and they've become quite demanding in that as well. So my predecessor was on stage a couple of years ago talking about the rise of near-me terms on mobile and saying that because users expect you to know where they are, we're seeing an increase in people typing for used car dealership near me, for example. What we find today is that because people have become used to that, they've stopped searching for the near me part of it, and they've become quite presumptuous around, okay, well, I'm just going to type in Thai food, and you should know if I'm at home and wanting delivery, or if I'm out in the middle of town and I'm looking for a restaurant. And I think that same principle can apply for dealerships. It's really what is the context of that user in that moment, and you're going to win in this kind of assistive experience by understanding the context and the signals which are being pointed towards you and your business, and then adapting your experience and making it more personalized for your customers, not treating them as a one-size-fits-all and everybody needs the same piece of content or the same marketing message. I think that's really important, that you kind of adapt to those signals which are being pointed towards you. Obviously we've spoken about voice so far, but this assistive kind of experiences doesn't just live on voice. We don't just interact with one platform. And as I said, we interact with multiple platforms. So you need to make sure this lives and breathes across whatever device they are using, be it their mobile phone, be it voice assistant, be it their laptop, or desktop at work. And we don't see it as a kind of one or the other. It's really, you should be building a kind of collective assistive experience in order to really win in this space.
And when it comes to smartphone use, it's always growing. Is there anything that dealers should be doing to ensure they're maximising the opportunity from people searching for cars on their smartphones?
Absolutely. like smartphones are incredibly important. I mean, it's hard to believe that a smartphone is 10 years old, and there are very few areas of life where it hasn't been influenced. There are now, I think it's over 7 or 8 different ways to order pizza online, which is staggering when you think about 10 years ago, you just call up your local kind of pizza shop. And there's 60 million smartphones available in the UK, or on the market in the UK right now. And they are used throughout the car buying process. From start to finish, people are using their phone. You just saw an example of myself using my mobile phone to find the dealership and actually arrive at the location. And so being, I guess, optimizing towards the mobile consumer is always something that is incredibly valuable. And you can do that by making sure that your content on site is strong, it's mobile optimized. You don't want to be sending people through form fills that go on for days and days and take every single piece of information about that particular user, because it creates friction. And really with mobile experiences, I kind of mentioned this earlier, it's about removing the friction. You want to make sure that it's a frictionless experience. And then the second thing I'd say is make sure it's fast. Speed up your site as best as you can. Users become quite impatient as a result of their kind of connectivity. So we find that over 50% of users going to a site will leave if it takes more than 3 seconds to load, which is quite a staggering statistic when you think, okay, well, my opportunity to engage with them is quite small. I need to make sure that I'm surfacing the right information and it's at the right time and I'm doing it quickly. So really those 2 bits of information there. Make sure your content is optimized, make sure it's easily accessible, and make sure it's fast.
And how are consumers using those mobile phones? Are they actually using them in dealerships to search for information when they're actually at the forecourt?
Good question. I think we come to the dealer these days incredibly empowered. We know to the nth degree what we want from our car because we're used to researching and searching in this world. I mentioned that the modern consumer has become curious. There's a great example of this where over the last 2 years, we've seen queries around best paper towels increase by almost 200%. And that is a very low consideration item. And us as marketers would typically say that's a low consideration item, so therefore it's not important to my marketing strategy. But we dictate as users now what is a high consideration item for us. And we want to make sure we're getting the best. And I think for dealers, that's incredibly important because a car is a big purchase and it's something you are very considered about before you go and purchase that. So we know now that, or the data shows that people visit less dealerships. They don't go and they don't walk around the forecourts in the same way they used to. And that's because they're getting the information they need online. They're coming to the dealer, informed with what type of finance they want to use. They know the make and model. They're just looking for the right deal for them and to make sure it's the correct car. But it's important for your team to then engage with them in store. That is where the purchase still happens. So it's important, but I don't have any particular data that says once they're in the dealership, yes, they're on their phone and they're kind of questioning what the sales assistants are saying, but they are empowered before they get into the dealer.
What about YouTube? I mean, dealers use it in lots of different ways and depending on their size, with lots of different budgets. Yeah. I mean, what would be your top tips for using YouTube and how should dealers be doing it in your opinion?
I think YouTube is an incredibly powerful tool for dealerships. And I was watching one of the keynotes yesterday and they were discussing how the budgets for YouTube don't need to be high. You have the ability to record quality videos by what you have in your pocket. You've got an HD camcorder right there in your pocket. But really, you need to be useful. So our research shows that video is used 60% of the time during the research stage of the car consideration period. And people are going on YouTube for third-party reviews. They're looking for existing customer reviews. They're looking for walkarounds of the vehicles. They're looking for key features of that vehicle. And I think that the dealerships have a right to play in that space and to communicate what it is that they're selling, why they're selling it, and why they should come through to you. But it doesn't need enormous budgets to be able to do that. You just got to make sure that you are useful to that consumer at that moment of need and you're producing something which is genuinely interesting to them and helping them make that decision to, I guess, refine their choice. Many customers come into market not knowing what they want. So you can help in that stage and make sure that you're generating strong signals of intent by using YouTube as a platform, be that follow-ups through test drives, inquiries, getting them into your forecourt. There's a lot of opportunity there.
There's lots of people producing good car content on YouTube. I mean, there's lots of motoring magazines and producing some very slick car reviews. Some dealers must look at that and think, I'm never going to be able to compete. So do you think these videos that they produce need to be a little bit more personal? Is it about the personality of the person who's selling the car, or is it about the specific model that they're actually selling?
That's a very good question. I'm just talking from personal opinion. I don't have any data to back that up. But I think you should be producing content, like I said, that aligns to the role you want to play in that purchase journey. If you are playing at the point of purchase, then yes, you probably are talking about more personalized content. You're talking about a particular vehicle they may be looking for, or at least a type of vehicle they're looking for. You may even be kind of explaining the different finance options, for example, which you can do, and you can do that in a personalized way. But I don't have any particular data that backs up where you should be playing, but I believe for the role of many dealers, a personalized experience will help them connect with their customer at that time when they are really interested in a particular make, model, or decision they're looking to make.
Does having a YouTube channel still have a big impact on your Google ranking?
Ooh, good question. It doesn't. I guess that's a difficult question to answer, because I don't think YouTube will have an impact on rank of other activity that you're doing, but you do have the ability to surface YouTube videos you've created as part of a search. So, if you're producing content that is relevant for the customer for that query, then you have the ability to be shown as one of the kind of video results. So, but I wouldn't say it's intrinsically linked to what would be an organic strategy.
Because there was a school of thought for a long time that if you had a YouTube channel, it's obviously a Google-owned platform, you embed that on your website, and Google is then searching through those web pages, seeing it, they like that more. So that's not true?
That's not something. That's not an area of my expertise, so I couldn't confirm or deny, unfortunately. But as I said, videos are able to rank within the search themselves, but I don't really know whether or not that is.
So if you were sat in a dealership showroom tomorrow, what top tips would you give them to improve their Google experience? Is there any key things that they should be doing that many aren't?
Yeah, and I guess coming back to that kind of content question, and what you are surfacing through the results page, you should be aligning your on-site content to the user. You've got to think about what is it that user is really interested in at that time, and make sure that you're surfacing the right information. And we know that it's a complex journey. We spoke about that early in this talk, the 900 digital touch points, about asking questions along that way. Are you answering those questions on your website, or are you sending them to a generic landing page and hoping that a sales promotion sticks with them and that they'll come into your dealership and actually take you up on that? You've also got to make it accessible. So it's got to be accessible. It's got to be accessible on mobile, on desktop, and it's got to be fast. We spoke about ranking. So in January, it was announced that page speed will be a ranking factor in the future. So you want to make sure that your website is optimized, and it is optimized for mobile, and it's easily accessible on mobile.
And what about PPC? I mean, is there any top tips you can give to dealers to maximize their returns on the investment they put into that when it comes to buying search terms?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot you can do. How long do we have left? 5 minutes. I would say think about the objectives of your PPC campaign. That's really important. Quite often you see kind of campaigns which are a bit muddied, they don't have a clear objective, they don't have a clear KPI, and they're not set up in a way to really be as efficient as they can be. So think about that funnel, think about that user journey. What are the top terms which are going to really drive kind of impact for your business, drive the right type of traffic through, and the type of traffic which is valuable to you? And create campaigns specifically around that. Don't try and bulk these together into different sections. And then I'd say use the tools and data that's available to you within the platform. So if you're a small dealership, make sure that you're geo-targeting to your kind of catchment area. If you are better at servicing after sales within a 10-mile radius, use geo-targeting to make sure that when you're re-engaging with your customers, that's what you're doing. You've got your kind of catchment area covered. If you value phone calls, make sure you're using call extensions. You're tracking the effectiveness of your ads at generating phone calls to your dealership. Same goes with measurement of online to offline, so using metrics like store visits to understand the effectiveness of your ads for driving people back into your dealership location. And then use that to optimize, understand what's work, set KPIs that are actually aligned to that objective. If you're bidding on the term best 4x4, it's very unlikely that someone's going to come and complete a form fill on your website. So think about, well, what is valuable to me if I'm engaging with someone in the upper middle funnel of their keywords? It's probably engagement on site, it's probably page depth, it's kind of a stickiness, and it's whether they're coming back and re-engaging with you. So making sure you're using the audience platforms within AdWords as well to re-engage and communicate based off what you know about that user. That's really important, and you can gain a lot of kind of efficiencies and a lot of scale by doing that.
Is it something that anybody can do, or do dealers need to employ some experts and agency to take it over for them?
I think it depends on the complexity of what you're looking to do. So there's AdWords Express, which is an easy self-serve platform. It's there to be straightforward and for anybody to log in and be able to set up their activity. And in that sense, if you're a small dealership and you're looking to kind of increase the amount of people coming through to your forecourt, then you can do that in-house. And AdWords has been set up in a way that allows everybody to be able to access it and use it. But that being said, it can be complicated as well. There's a lot of features, there's a lot of settings, there's a lot of, you can get to a very strong expert level within that. And whether you employ in-house or go agency or find someone who understands the platforms to be able to deliver what you're looking to do, then it's what's best for your business, really.
Yesterday we had a panel about online car sales, which was incredibly interesting. Just in the last couple of minutes, do you think consumers are ready to buy cars online, and what are Google's thoughts on
It's an interesting question. I think, so we've been paying close attention to this because we think it's going to be an interesting development within the auto space, so my team in particular. And a bit of research suggests to us that about 1 in 4 would consider purchasing online, but we know at the moment that they don't. So there may be people who are willing to, but they don't already. Interestingly, when you look at the factors of why people would buy online, it's typically price. It's saving money. It's the convenience of buying online, and that it can be delivered to you. You don't have that experience of having to go and out of your way to get the car. But then the kind of barriers are things like, I want to see the car, I want to feel it. It's still a big purchase, and people aren't quite ready there yet. And I think there is some education around the kind of category itself to make consumers actually, kind of complete their purchases online. But interestingly, we did take a look at the proportion of users who said that they wouldn't purchase online and asked them what might incentivize you to purchase online. And quite often it was the same things that people who said they would purchase online were there. So price, service, making sure that if you're unhappy with your purchase, you can return it easily. The kind of consumer experiences that people are used to when they're purchasing online, if that flows through, then they become much more kind of willing to. And there was still a proportion of those who said, no, it's not for me, I want to see the car. But I think the market isn't quite there yet, but I do think it's coming.
How can dealers prepare for it? I mean, is there anything they can do now for this change that's coming? Is it about making small steps?
Yeah, I think it's just keeping a close eye on what the consumers are after. You can't stand still. You're dealing with the best digital experiences customers have ever had, be that in auto, but everywhere else. Look at what becomes subscription platforms. We said on stage yesterday the likes of Netflix and how easy and seamless it is to kind of complete actions digitally. People are expecting that, and I think they will expect that within the automotive industry itself. But it's a new area. You have the ability to drive that forward. The dealerships and the industry will be deciding how that is implemented, and if consumers like it, they'll respond to it. And you just have to adapt and listen to what your consumers are doing. And I think follow best practice, make sure you're really putting yourself in your customer's shoes, and you can be successful there. But I don't think there's one top tip today I could say around go and start bidding on buy online terms, because I don't think the consumers are there yet. But be ready and be mindful that may be coming.
Okay, Max, thank you very much. Next up on the live stage in 5 minutes, we've got a session all about finance. Is the PC bubble about to burst? So if you come back in 5 minutes, we'll be cracking on with that. Thanks very much, Max.